Read back to Mark this morning, Mark 6, 45 through 56. The title of the sermon, as you can see, what are you looking at? This isn't like my friend, I remember from high school, he had a pretty bad temper, he liked to fight. And somebody was looking at him like, what are you looking at? I swear your eyes shut. That's not what we're talking about here. It's what are you looking at? As we look at this text, hopefully we can get through most of it, a little short on time. But we'll do what I'll do, and that whatever God says to do, I'll do. This sermon. Verse 45. And immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of the Bethsaida. And he himself was sending the crowd away. This is right after he fed the 5,000. That's what we talked about last week. And after bidding them farewell, he left for the mountain to pray. When it was evening, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Seeing them straining at the oar, for the wind was against them, at about the fourth watch of the night, he came out to them, walking off by the sea, and he intended to pass by them. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost. He cried out. For they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke with them, and he said to them, Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. Then he got to the boat with them, and the wind stopped, and they were utterly astonished. For they had not gained any insight, but the incident of the loaves and the ark of Tarsus. And actually, we can stop at verse 52, not 56. First thing we see in this text, at the end of a long, that's supposed to be a long, August Frank fix that for me. I love it when a computer tells me how to write. At the end of a long day, look to God in prayer. See what we talked about, he had just fed 5,000, they were hungry. He preached to them, and he fed them, and it had been going hard for a long time. The disciples had just come back from their journey in 2 by 2, and they got back, and as soon as they got back, they wouldn't go rest, and they couldn't go rest, and they couldn't go rest because the people followed them, and they followed them there, and then they got there, and then they had to not only wait on them, they had to serve them. They had to take food to them, and they collected all this food, they got it together, and now they were ready. They were ready to get a break. So Jesus says, I'm going to send them away. He sent them away, and it says here that and immediately Jesus made his disciples get into a boat and go ahead of him to the other side, to Bethsaida, where he himself sending the crowd away. And after bidding them farewell, he went to the mountain to pray. See, Jesus, when he fed them, they thought, man, this guy gave us food. We could sit and talk to him. And the Romans are just taking from us. We're going to keep king. So Jesus knew this was in the heart. He says, no, this isn't going to happen. So I think to make it a little easier, he sent the disciples away so that would be a distraction, so he wouldn't have to worry about them. And he's sending them away. This is another one of those miracles that we really think about being a miracle. How can you take a crowd that wants to make a king and just send them away? Well, he's God. And we talked about when Jairus was going, that God made the crowd leave him alone as they went to Jairus' house to check on his daughter, and which was asleep, but the mortal thought she was dead. Jesus rose from the grave, or he rose from the dead. So this is the same kind of thing. He sent away. He said, "This is not my course." So he sent the crowd and his disciples away. He bid farewell to his friends, and he went to spend time with the Father. As much as you like your friends and family, sometimes you need to get away. Spend time with the Father. And that's what Jesus is. But some of us don't like being alone very long, right? I'm kind of that way. I don't like being alone very long. I can be alone. I'm good by myself. I'm not so insecure I can be myself. I'm okay with that. I saw a poll online the other day. How many times have you eaten by yourself? I can't count the number of times I've eaten by myself at a restaurant. I don't care. You think I'm weird eating by myself? I don't care. I'm there to eat. You know, I'm okay with being with me. I know who I am. I'm okay with that. Even before we had cell phones, we could keep ourselves entertained. I've always been okay with that. But some people just can't be alone very long. Our dog, she can't be alone very long. Are you saying? But there are times we need to be alone with God. We need to be away from everybody. It's not talking about just being alone. Taking intentional time to be alone with God. Taking and praying, talking to Him. You can be alone in a crowd with God too. Right? You stop and you focus on Him. See, many times our nights are filled with getting things together for the next day. And Brother Williams will be thanking you for getting it for the next day. In our rushing times, we forget about the most important thing. And I've been really trying to practice this week even more diligently than I had before. How many of you, when you go to bed, trying to fix the problems of tomorrow or yesterday in your mind? Y'all there? You know, Like when my car was messed up the other week, and then Steve come over and fixed it in 45 seconds. Thanks, Steve. You're making me look bad. No, really, thanks for getting it loose. I'm laying there the night before, like, if I do this, and I do this, I can get that loose. And I still couldn't get it loose. It took somebody with some know-how. It's something that's not, it isn't. We spend our nights thinking about the present problems, the past problems, the future problems. And all we do is sit there and worry. And when we do this, what happens? I've been had to change my get-up schedule. The time I get up for wake-up schedule, everybody's called wake-up schedule because of my new route. So I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but I'm making myself get up at 4:30. And when I sit at night and I think about things that I need to do the next day, I'm not going to sleep. So am I getting enough sleep? The answer is no. And we've talked about praying, and talked about sometimes when you pray, some people say, every time I pray, I fall asleep. And sometimes that's a bad thing because you really need to talk to God. And so then you have to wake up and say, God, I'm sorry, and continue back in prayer. But sometimes that's a good thing. And if you lay there and you start praying to God, praising God, thanking Him for who He is, and what He's going to do, just pray to Him, and you go to sleep. So which do you think is better? To go to bed worrying or to go to bed trusting? Go to bed trusting. That just came, I was like, man, why have I learned this a long time ago? No. Because Mark Lowry, the comedian, he talked about when he had surgery one time. He said, when you have surgery, he said, the first time I had surgery, I realized the last thing you think about when you go under is the first thing you think about when you wake up. So his solution to that was the next time he had surgery, he was going to confront the doctor, and he did. The doctor told him he was going to have a paralyzed face, and he messed up, and he woke up pretending his face was paralyzed. Messing with the doctor. Did you suffer that nerve? Messing with the doctor. But it is true that if you go to bed thinking about Jesus, if you go to bed concentrating on how great He is instead of how big your problems are, I think we wake up with a different attitude. I know it's hard because I know we got a sick family, we've got lost people. If you stay up all night praying for your lost family members, that's not what I'm talking about. Sometimes God burdens you to pray for your family members and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I know we have all these things that we want to solve and fix. Sometimes we just got to stop and talk to Father. Jesus did it. How do we think that we can get away with not doing it? Some days the day's been tiresome, we have no energy, but we always seem to have enough energy to lie awake and worry about tomorrow. I say take that time and use it in prayer. Take that, spend that time with Jesus. End of the long day. Look to God in prayer. Spend the end of your day with God to prepare your heart for the next day's challenge. Martin Luther said that he had so much to do, he needed to spend, God had an hour instead, but that's like 3-4 hours of prayer at the beginning of the day before you can even get started. And I'm not really saying that we need to get up at 3 o'clock and start praying, but we need to pray a little bit more than we do. Next, we see, I'm going to move a little quicker than I would because we don't have a whole lot of time. Let's apply this. Spend the end of your day with God to prepare you for the next day's challenges. Because challenges are going to come the next day. Right? You say, yes, I know. Now, as you see, there's no doubt the challenges will come to be ready. It says, in the middle of the storm, look for Jesus. Before we go to verses 40, we're going to start reading in verses 45 all the way down to 51. Even though we've already read that. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get to the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of Bethsaida, while he himself was sending the crowd away. Now, who told them to go on the sea? Jesus. He commanded them, get out of here and get in the boat and go. I need you out of here. And go across the sea, and I'll meet you over there. He said, I'll meet you over there. And when he did this, they did nothing wrong. How many times when something bad happens, she's like, what did I do now? Oh, God, why are you punishing me for this? What hidden sin do I have that you're punishing me for? Every time something hard happens, isn't because you've done something wrong. Every time something hard or something bad happens because of big S-I-N. Sin brings all pain into the world. Sin is the reason I've got a splinter right there in the middle of my finger. I was out there raking yesterday, and the rake had a little piece of wood in it, and got my finger. That happened not because I was a bad raker. That happened because wood gets dry. Things rot. Things fall apart. Why does that happen? It's because of big sin. So when we go through trials, sometimes we go through trials by no fault of our own. And it is frustrating sometimes. I don't know what I've done to deserve this. Well, this is just quick. You don't want what you deserve. Because you get what you deserve. You deserve death and hell. Every single one of us. Even the sweetest person you know deserves death and hell. Why? Because sin, your sin, put Jesus on the cross. Your sin is so reprehensible to God that it put him on the cross. And you deserve death and hell, because the wages of sin is death. But God, in his great mercy, saved you and made you worthy. So you don't want what you deserve. So on the way, they met a headwind. In the way of bad storm, on the way it says they toiled for hours trying to get to the other side. In Matthew 4:25 says it was in the fourth watch of the night. So did anybody know when the fourth watch is? That's 3 a.m. They left probably before dark because they sent everybody away, and they were out there on the water about a 4-mile trip in a boat. Shouldn't have been more than a couple, 3 hours. And they were sitting there rowing for hours with a headwind just beating them down. The whole time, hours going through this. And you'll say, Jackie, I've been through some headwinds like that. It seems like every time I turn around, something else slapped me in the face. And I know y'all been through it because I've been here when you went through it. And last time they went through a headwind like this, y'all remember what happened? Jesus was asleep on the boat. But this time, Jesus isn't even on the boat. He's on land. They don't know if he's still on that side. They don't know if he's on the other side waiting for him. Last time they went through this, he was there. And when he woke up, he started calling to the storm, but now they're by themselves. At least they think they are. I think God allows us to go through times where we feel lonely so we can realize he's there, even when we don't see him. Now, I mentioned Mark Lowry earlier. One thing he said, too, I thought was pretty funny. He talked about eternal security. I believe once saved, always saved. If you're ever truly saved, you are truly saved. I believe that God saved you by grace, and he is the one who saved you, and there's nothing the devil can do about it. But when I get woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't feel saved. How about you? I don't even think God's awake at 2. That's what Mark Lowry said. God's not even awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes you don't feel very spiritual. Sometimes you feel just like the whole world is falling apart around you. But the God who was there when things were great is the same God that's there with you right now. And God allows us to go through these times so we can realize he's still there. So when Jesus is walking up in the sea in the midst of the same storm that they're in, he's walking across. He's taking a stroll across the water. And he saw their struggles. But friends, I don't want to mock the struggle because the struggle is real. When you see a friend or family member go through cancer and suffer with cancer, that's real. When you see people go through other diseases and they suffer, you see meaningless deaths, it seems like. When you see people suffer over and over and over again, losing their job when it doesn't matter. When we see children abused, these things are real. These things hurt. And Jesus he's not making a mockery of it. The struggle when we go through things is not like it's just perceived. If anybody's ever had these diseases, you can tell me. I mean, some of you just recently have been through times and been laid up in a hospital bed, and the struggle's real. But one thing Jesus did, it's one thing that one of our ministry classes taught us. He said to the pastor, when somebody calls you with an emergency, and you go to the hospital, when you go to the hospital, don't rush in there and act out of control. He said, because you want to get there as quickly as possible. Maybe in your heart you're rushing there and you're speeding on the way there. And you get there, but when you walk into the room, don't go in there out of control. Because if you go in there out of control, what does that convey to the people you're speaking to? Oh no, oh no, oh no. But if you go in there with a calm and knowing that God has got this, it conveys to them that God has got this. And Jesus calmly walked over. He didn't come and rush in there and say, hey, I'm going to solve your problem. You ever had a child working on something and you see what they're doing and you know it's completely wrong? And they're struggling, they're trying to put it together. And they're, you know what I'm talking about? And you can come over there in 2 seconds and fix it, right? But you let them struggle for a purpose, don't you? One, maybe they learn how to do it. And two, you teach them to rely on you. And after a minute, they'll call in and say, hey, Daddy, hey, P-Pops, I need help. See, we come over and we let them struggle because the struggle is good to teach us. So Jesus waits till he calls out for help. And when he calls out for help, what does he do? He knows. He says, I want you to call out to me, because when you call out to me, you learn to submit to my leadership. See, there's no mention that earlier when they were traveling and the sea was terrible, that they called out to Jesus for help. But what they did do is when they saw Jesus walking across the sea, they said, oh no, it's a ghost. Instead of looking to see Jesus there to intervene, they saw the worst thing possible. This ghost the word they use is kind of a thought of a demon. Maybe he was even the God who was going to cause them the storm. He was like, oh no, it's going to get worse. Instead of trusting God. But when Jesus came into the boat, this is what he said there. And when he saw them on the sea, he supposed that they saw the ghost. And they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke with them and said to them, take courage. That kind of reminds me of Joshua, right? Where Joshua kept telling him, be strong and be very courageous. He says, take courage. It is I, do not be afraid. And every one of your English translations don't translate this like I wish they would. It's actually the word, and we've talked about this before from John, ego eimi. It actually says, it's like a double positive. Ego means I am. Eimi means I am. When we saw this in John, when he was in the garden in John, and they came to arrest him, they asked him, are you Jesus? And he looks at him, he says, ego eimi. When he did that there, they all were forced to bow before him. They all fell on their faces. And when they come to Jesus in the boat, Jesus coming onto the boat, he looked at them and he says, ego eimi. I am the I am. Does that sound familiar? When Moses was in the wilderness of the burning bush, he says, who do you say people say, who going to tell people that you are? Well, I'm sound like I'm stuttering now, right? Jason said, I know you stutter. Moses says, who can I tell people that you are? God says, tell them, I am the I am. Jesus got in the boat and says, I'm God, don't worry. I got this. Ego eimi. I am the I am. That when the I am is with you, there's no reason to be afraid. The truth is that believers are we are filled with the Holy Spirit. No matter how big the mountain is, or how low the valley is, or how fierce the storm, or how heavy the burden is, the I am is there. He is with us. You know that Matthew 14 tells the same story. It doesn't get repeated here because Peter was the one who walked in the water. It doesn't tell the story of Peter walking the water, but we know that Peter, when he was walking on the water, he was doing fine as long as his eyes were on Jesus. And he took his eyes off Jesus and he went down. He doesn't share this here, but we're going to talk that when he took his eyes back on Jesus, everything went. He rise of the water, he walked. But when Jesus stepped on the boat, what happened? The storm completely stopped. They were amazed one more time. So let's apply this real quick. We're not going to be much longer. I'm trying to get through this. Keep your eyes on Jesus, so when the storm comes, you are already looking in the right place. That makes sense? If Carrie Ann was singing this song, Jesus Take the Wheel. And it's always when the car gets out of trouble, then you holler out for Jesus to take the wheel. I'm saying, give Jesus the wheel before you get the car. Then you're not worried about sliding out of trouble. And if the danger comes, he's behind the wheel to start with. Let's see. Look back and see God's victories. Verse 52. For they have not yet gained insight from the incident of the loaves and by the harvest harvest. When I first read this, it was like a gut punch. I was reading through this, it's a great story, and it said they hadn't gained insight from the incident of the loaves and fishes for the harvest harvest. He could just feed 5,000, he fed 5,000 people with basically a lunchable. The same we couldn't find 3 or 4 months ago in the store, a little snack. He just fed 5,000 people, and they picked up 12 big lunches to take with them. He calmed the storm before they healed the sick. Even through him, they had had a chance to heal the sick and cast out demons. And he raised people from the dead. He done all this stuff. And they were able to succeed without the power of God before. Now Jesus is immediately in the presence, and yet they go back again and revert back. This made me think of, no. Because when I first read it, my first gut response for it was, what's wrong with those guys? But quickly that feeling changed. What's wrong with me? How many times has God delivered me? How many times God brought me through something? How many times has God made things right? And then when things get tough again, I start dying within my heart. I start trusting Him. Circumstances of fear I allow to just control me. And God thought He could deliver me over and over and over again through bigger circumstances. Now the gut punch got a little harder. Got a little more deep in my stomach. I'm fairly certain that this lack in the disciples and the lack in our own lives is from the same failure. We don't treat failure as the lack of looking to God in prayer. If we really knew Him, we would completely trust Him. The reason we don't trust God is because we don't spend time with Him. That's when it gets bumped and it doesn't work sometimes. We're just going to move on. We know Romans 8, 37 to 39. It reminds us of the truth that through the height and depth of principalities of God, there is nothing ever can separate us from the love of God. Last we're going to see looking forward to God's opportunities. And actually, I'm going to go through verse 53 through 56. And when they crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret and the moored to the shore. They got on the boat, and immediately the people recognized them and ran about the whole country, began to carry here and there on the pallets of those who were sick to the place where they heard He was. When they entered the village or the city, the countryside, they were laying the sick in the marketplace and imploring Him that they might just touch the fringe of His cloak. And as many as touched Him were cured. You see, they traveled throughout the countryside, healing the sick, casting out demons. They thought they were going to get a break. Then the 5,000 were fed. Then they decided to go across the sea. They thought they were going to get across the sea and get a good rest. It didn't happen. They fought the storm again. And then they get there, what happens? As soon as they get there, it must have been daylight. People recognized it. They reached the other side of the Gennesaret and they found an opportunity to see God's hand move again. Jesus had been there before, and people showed up in droves because they knew that Jesus was there. He brought the people out in pallets. These are the same stories that we hear throughout this Gospels. People saw it happen. It happened. We don't realize that. Oh yeah, somebody brought got a pallet and they took him through a roof and gave it to Jesus. We don't realize that people continued over and over. Everywhere Jesus went, people would bring people to him like that in droves. They brought him out of the pallets to him. They were touching the hem of his garment and receiving the healings. What a sight this must have been, a glorious display of God's power and grace. Now, it's not likely that we're going to have big healing things today. We have people who claim to be healers that go around and are charlatans and take people's money and lie to them and get around around them. It's not likely to see such display as that in our day. But there's a greater grace that we can experience and share when a lost sinner is bound for hell, is freed from his debt of sin by the precious blood of Jesus while one us. And friends, we can participate in that. We can look forward to those God opportunities. God has uniquely given man and woman, mankind, the privilege and responsibility to share the gospel. It says, when we pray for those in this jar right here, that's what we're doing. We're hoping to see God's wonderful grace change their lives. When God gives a sinner space to repent and calls them to himself and moves in their hearts by giving them faith, wow, what a sight to you. You think those people coming and getting healed is nothing. They didn't say anything about him teaching them. He was just healed their physical ailments. When God heals somebody's soul, it's a much greater miracle. So this April 23rd, that's part of what this is about. It's not just about giving people clothes. It's not having an opportunity to share the gospel. What's happening on Friday night with Fishers of Men, it's an opportunity to see God move greatly. Those who aren't coming to this, I'm asking you to pray that God move mightily in those events. So watch and pray, believing that God can and will save those who are lost and restore their backside. Let's apply this in our time. Look in hopeful expectation for the mighty power to move of God in your lives, your family's lives, your church's life, your community, your state, your country, and yes, even look in hopeful expectation that in your job, and the people in your job that are complete heathens that drive you crazy, that God can save them. But you know what? He can. Start praying for them. That person you hate at work, start praying for them. You mean, I want to pray for him. I don't care. Do it. Why? Because that person needs Jesus. We need to get over ourselves sometimes. That's the problem with all these storms. We get in a storm and we start thinking about ourselves. A little bit to the God. The more time we spend with him, the more time we'll trust him. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your word. Lord, help us to be looking at you. Who am I looking at? Lord, let the answer ever be that I'm looking at Jesus, the author and the finisher of my faith. Lord, call us, Lord, and when trials come, to look at you and see what you are doing, what you've done, and what you're going to do. And trust that you can do that to our lives, Lord, no matter how big our trials are, no matter how big our burdens are, that you are able, Lord, to do abundantly beyond what we could ever ask or think. Thank you, Lord, for your grace. Thank you for your mercy. And just be glorious, Lord, in our church. In Christ's name.
Invitation hymn is wherever he leads, I'll go. Number 347, let us stand, please.
first hymn said, "Have faith in God." That kind of goes along with the sermon. I think Wanda read the text. She did it. Pretty sure she did when I saw it in the Psalms. And this song says, "Wherever he leads, I'll go." Now, sometime when he leads, you won't be able to see but that far in front of you. But he says, "Follow me." We would all do that. Could you imagine what's going to happen to this church? Have no community. I'm looking for great things to happen on the 23rd. And I'm working on some things in my mind and trying to see what we can do to maybe prepare us to be able to minister to people. Some better ways to maybe have 2 or 3 ways and 8 ways we can share the gospel with people that day. So keep praying for that and ask God to give us faith that he's going to do great things, and ask God to give us the faith to follow him wherever he leads, that we will go, and we'll go willingly. Miller, your choice in prayer.
Still, thank you for bringing on life today, hearing your word. We ask you, Lord, your word speak to us, speak out of the community, spread your word to you. So it's be here, bring more people to church. Fill your name, pray, keep with us, we come again. Amen.
Hey, Tom. Hey. There you go. All right. Good. How you doing? Put your arm down.
Get up full 31 on him, maybe.
I got to do my studying and stuff.
That's a good thing. He was he never remembered that. But yeah, he apologized. I will. As soon as she lets me know, okay? Hey, baby.
Like,